Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by Nathan Solomon, one of the Podium Finish, the managing editor of the Podium Finish. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. Today we get to talk about the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Yes, that's still getting used to say though. Again, um, lots of things to talk about. Yeah, I've kind of waited a lot about this since with Xfinity and Cup we did a few weeks ago. Just had to just waiting to get some more rides confirmed. Now we can do it. Okay. Before we get into teams, what's your outlook on the Truck Series this year?
A lot of new faces. That's certainly the number one big thing. I mean, we kind of talk a lot about the new look of the Xfinity series, but there's certainly a new look in the Truck series as well. Lots of new guys. There's some truck guys moving up. A lot of this, of course, is stemming from that Kyle Busch change. Of course, him. He's going to, Richard Childress Racing in the Cup Series, meaning his truck team is essentially switching from Toyota to Chevrolet. So that's really shaking some things up, seeing a lot of new names and new places and just some new names overall too. So looking forward to it though. I think there's going to be a fun mix of drivers, and I think that maybe this year's truck series is probably going to be the deepest truck series we've seen in at least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think so. Well, let's start as we always do with, we'll go by manufacturer. We'll start with the Toyota group. Lots of change there. Teams switching from and to. We'll get more into that when we get into the Chevrolet and Ford portions. But with Toyota, they've three teams, of course. Let's start with probably the biggest one, Tricon Garage, which used to be David Gillen Racing. They were a Ford team. They switched to Toyota. They'll have five teams racing for them. Of course, the one team will be a multitude of drivers that hasn't been announced yet. Obviously, more on that later. Dean Thompson, who of course was with Nice Motorsports in the 5, Corey Heim in the 11, Tanner Gray in the 15, and Taylor Gray in the 17. Obviously, he'll have to. There will be a driver that will be obviously filling in for Taylor until he turns 18. That driver has not been publicly announced. I do know who it is though. Nathan, what do we think about Tricon Garage?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some unknowns there, not all. I mean, you look at somebody like Corey Heim, he's expected to go in and be really an immediate title contender for that team. Obviously making that switch there to Toyota from Ford, that could take, there could be some growing pains there for sure. And then, now that they're going to be up to 5 trucks, that's certainly, lots of drivers, lots of vehicles that they're going to have to manage there, lots of chassis that they are going to have to maintain. So there could be some growing pains for them at times. I think you're going to see a good year out of Corey Heim. I don't know if he'll win the championship, but I think he could certainly be up in the mix. And then I think, you look at the Gray brothers, I think they'll have pretty good years as well. I think we've seen some potential out of both of them that have just not been able to be fully unleashed yet. So, I've been pretty high on really both of them, but I think Taylor Gray in particular, I think he kind of gets underlooked a little bit in terms of prospects in NASCAR. He's a guy that was in contention to win at least one truck race last year before getting wrecked there at IRP, but he's not had a ton of time in the truck so far. So I think that if he, once he turns 18, he'll be full time in the truck. I think that'll be really good for him. He's won a lot of ARCA races. Really had a good year in ARCA last year. Couldn't really run for the championship, but had a really solid year last year in the ARCA Hard Series. So I think those three drivers in particular will have pretty good years. I think we could see Taylor Gray break through with that first victory. And then the other two entries, obviously Dean Thompson's a big unknown. Obviously he was over there at Nice for a while, and then that last entry, which we don't know really a whole heck of a lot about right now. But it'll be interesting though. Again, they'll have some growing pains, but I think they could have some success this year.
Sure. Let's talk about Halmar Friesen Racing. Of course, they confirmed to me a few weeks ago that they will be a Toyota team. And of course, John Leonard will stay as Stuart Friesen's crew chief. What are we expecting from the 52 team? I know they picked up that win at Texas. They did make the playoffs. And plus, we don't know. This could be possibly a 2-truck team with possibly, I know they're still trying to work on funding for Lane Riggs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just talk about Stewart for now, but I mean, he's another one of those guys that comes in certainly as one of the title favorites. He's been close to making the championship for these last couple of years. Really, just fell a few spots short in at Martinsville in 2021 and then Homestead last year. So I think this is the year. He's got to go out. He's got to find his way into the championship four. I think that has to be the goal for him. I think you look at any other driver and they'll say, hey, if we make the championship four, whatever happens, happens, right? But for somebody like that, at least for right now, a one truck team, the goal though has to be able to get into that championship four because they've been close. They've shown that they have the speed to be able to do it. They just finally have to just break in and break through, and make it into the championship four. Whether that's a win in the round of 8, whether that's just a little bit more consistency because it seems like he can usually put together 2 pretty good races, and then some place like Talladega might bite him a little bit. So if he puts together 3 clean races or finds a way to win, that'd be big for him. It's time for him to break through and get to the championship four and put himself in a position to win the championship. Because he's also pretty good at Phoenix too. So if he can get to Phoenix, anything can happen.
Yep. Let's talk about the final Toyota team. That, of course, is Hattori. Of course, they announced just last week that Tyler Ankrum will be returning to the team this year, and of course, they will be mostly a one truck team. But they did announce, and I did confirm this with the team, that they will run a second truck part time with the driver to be named later. But yeah, just what are we expecting from Hattori? They were a 2 truck team last year. They will be mostly 1 truck this year. That might be better for them.
Yeah, I think it will be. I mean, they've mainly been a one truck team in the past, so they can kind of put all their resources into Tyler Ankrum, someone who it seems like they think pretty highly of. I know he has not had a ton of success so far at the truck level. I believe he does have 1 win, but he's a guy that they need to get back to victory lane for sure. Get him back into the playoffs. I think that with Hattori, that's certainly possible. But this is a big year for him. I think he really has to have a high emphasis on getting to victory lane and proving that he can still do it. He can still compete in NASCAR. Can compete in the highest levels of the sport. So big year for him. I think a good goal for him would be to try to win a race and just lock himself into those playoffs.
All right, let's move on to Ford, and there was a lot of changes there. Let's start with the obvious. Let's start with the champ, Zane Smith. He's back. That entire team is back at Front Row Motorsports, and of course, Chris Lawson is back as well. What are we going to expect from the 38 team? Do they go back to back because they got a good shot?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly kind of hard to put expectations on a team that just comes off another championship without saying, I think their expectation has to be to win another championship. And I mean, at least for a team like that, again, it kind of goes back to the Friesen thing, a one truck team, just got to make the championship four. Once you get there, whatever happens, happens. That race fell his way at Phoenix last year. It could have gone, either way, because with like 10 laps to go, they're all the 4 championship drivers were running 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So just make the championship 4, and then whatever happens, happens. Of course, his goal will be to win the championship, but once you get to Phoenix, it's basically just a kind of a 1 in 4 shot. So obviously his goal just has to be win a lot of races. Show that he's ready to move up because we know that he's going to be in the Daytona 500 with Front Row. That's big for him. I know there's been talk that maybe he'll do a couple more Cup races. There's talk that he could maybe do some Xfinity races. They said that last year. So I think he just has to continue to prove himself and win a lot of races and show, hey, I'm ready for the Cup Series, or maybe if I'm not ready for the Cup Series yet, I'm ready to go full time in the Xfinity Series.
For sure. Also, I want to also point this out. AM Racing will also be a Ford team. They have not announced who's going to be in there. I would think Austin Wayne Self or whoever else could be in there. I know they said Christian Rose will be in there. And also, one thing we forgot to mention in our Xfinity show, AM Racing will also be fielding an Xfinity team with Brett Moffitt in there. So, but anyway, let's talk about the other team that's going to be a Ford team as well. That, of course, is ThorSport. That's going to be ThorSport is back to Ford. They were Fords in from 2018 to 2020, and they are back to Ford once again in 2023 after 2 years with Toyota. The lineup is the same, but obviously one big change. Of course, that's Haley Deegan. Of course, Ty Majeski in the 66, Matt Crafton in the 88, and Ben Rhodes in the 99. Hard to believe, but Matt Crafton will also enter his 23rd season in the Truck Series. I think he's been in every race since like 2001 or 2002, something like that. I don't think that gets a lot of credit from people. So anyway, what's your outlook for Thor Sport this year?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of the Truck Series powerhouse, right? So I think the goal obviously has to be to probably get a couple trucks into the championship if they can, at least one at the minimum. Obviously, they had two last year with both Majeski and Rhodes. So at least try to get those guys back. I think Majeski showed towards the end of the year that he's got it. He's in the right team around the right people. He could go out and win races, and obviously Ben Rhodes, your 2021 champion, kind of in that same boat, right? And then Matt Craftsman's kind of your old reliable, if you will. I think he's due to get back to victory lane. So I mean, I'm expecting another good season out of them all around. We talked about Haley Deegan a little bit before, I think, in one of these shows, kind of these new shows that we did last year, but or after the announcement anyway. But she's got to go out and prove herself. She had a couple years there with DGR, didn't really work out fully. A lot of inconsistencies for her, but really now with the cream of the crop here in the Truck Series. She's got to go out and perform. She's got to go out and win a race and show that she belongs. But I think that she'll definitely have a really good opportunity to do so. I think that's certainly well within the realm of possibilities. She'll definitely be in better equipment than she was at DGR. But with how little time it's been since this team has been with Ford, and it's only been a couple years, I think they'll be able to make the switch pretty seamlessly and be really competitive, really right out the gate.
Yeah, that's definitely going to see what the Blue Oval's got in store this year. Definitely going to be interesting to watch what Haley Deegan does in 2023. All right, let's go to Chevy. There's a lot of teams there, and this is a manufacturer that did not have the best year. Let's start with GMS. Three trucks this year for them. Of course, they were two last year. Grant Enfinger remains in the 23. Raja Karuth is in the 24, and Daniel Dye is in the 43. Your outlook for GMS this year? I know you got a chance to talk to one of their drivers before Christmas. Overall, what do you think about GMS looking into that?
I think it's one of the more underrated lineups right now in the Truck Series. Obviously, Grant Anfinger is that veteran. He can go out and win races. But you look at Raja Karuth and Daniel Dye. Really two rookies there that's going to be good stuff. I think obviously Raja did a couple truck races last year for Spire, just couldn't quite put together full races, crashed in a couple of them, but I think even put together full races, he'll be really competitive, and same as Daniel Dye, both guys. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Casey. I know Raja didn't, but neither of them won ARCA races, or did Daniel win a couple races?
Daniel didn't know. They did not win ARCA races.
That's what I thought, but they didn't win ARCA races. I think they'll be in good enough stuff now. And they'll pretty seamlessly transition up to the Truck Series. I can see those guys running top 10, top 15 pretty often, being in contention for wins, being in contention to potentially make the playoffs. So I think for really all three of those guys, for GMS, I think the goal is to get all three trucks into the playoffs. But I think all three of them have the potential to be able to go out and win races. And obviously big years for Raja and Daniel now, their first full-time seasons up here on the 3 touring series. So certainly a big year for them to show that they can they can do it.
And GMS, of course, confirmed that they will not be running in the ARCA Menard Series in 2023. Let's go to another GMS affiliated team, a team that had a lot of change last year. MHR, which is also known as BMR, the McAnally Hilgeman team. Of course, Christian Eckes, of course, who was with Thorsport last year, switches to that team. He'll be in the 19 truck. And then, of course, Jake Garcia will be in the 35. Of course, he's not old enough to run Daytona, so but he'll be back in the second race. So obviously someone will have to fill in. That has not been announced yet. But overall, this is a team that changed a lot. Their two drivers from last year, Colby Howard and Derek Kraus, are not going to be back with this team. So a complete change for this team. What do we expect?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell, honestly. Christian Eckes has won a race before. Last year he quietly had a pretty good year with Thorsport, just really couldn't get it done. Made the playoffs and was really in contention to win a lot of races, just, again, couldn't piece that all together. I think it might be a little bit of a step down for him, or a step back, if you will, but he's still in pretty good stuff. I think he can go out and at least be on the cusp of making the playoffs. Derek Kraus had been in the playoff mix these last couple of years, so I think Christian look, I think just Christian Eckes will be able to go in and at least be in the mix. So if he can show himself there, I think that'd be a good thing for him. And then Jake Garcia, kind of another one of those prospects I don't think a lot of people have talked about. Kind of a West Coast kid that has ran a lot of ARCA West stuff, not really a ton of ARCA main stuff, so his name isn't really as prevalent anymore. But kid's got a lot of talent though, and I think that's a good place to really start his National Series career. And I think he can grow and be kind of a household name here in NASCAR over these next several years. But big opportunity for him though to kind of get his name out there and just show he belongs.
I know Jake Garcia is actually, from Georgia, and I know he's kind of climbed his way up the late model ranks, and I know it's someone that team has been really high on. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this year. Nice Motorsports, of course. Not really sure what their plans are. We know that Carson Hocevar will be back in the truck, and of course we had Carson on this channel not too long ago. And he did confirm to me that Phil Gould will also be his crew chief once again this year. And there's a lot of interesting things going on at Nice right now. A lot of new trucks. The budget's been increased. Of course, Worldwide Express will sponsor the 42 truck for the entire 2023 season. And there's a lot of confidence, a lot of optimism from that 42 team. What do we expect? Does Carson Hocevar get a win this year?
I kind of feel like he has to. He's been full-time now for a couple of years, has been close a lot of times. Didn't run as well down the stretch, made some poor decisions down the stretch as well. Some just kind of on-track behavioral incidents. So that obviously kind of has to get straightened out a little bit for him. But I think that if he can kind of keep his nose clean, I think he can run well, finally break through with that victory. I'm not saying that he's a guy that could be in the championship four, but I think he's a guy that could at least make the round of 8 and certainly be in the mix to potentially make the championship four. But I think goal number one for him, though, has to just be going out and winning a race first. In most of these series, obviously in the truck series, you'll get a few guys in on points, but in any of these series, you can't bank on, going out and running for a championship and being in the mix for a championship without winning a race. So I think goal number one for him just has to be to go out and win a race. And then, in terms of playoffs and championship aspirations, we can go from there after he breaks through with a victory.
All right, one last team to talk about. Of course, that is the Rackley Ward team. Of course, that's Matt DiBenedetto. He is back with this team. Nothing really changed, but you kind of saw it. And I got a chance to talk with Matty D a lot last year. It's just he seems just different. He just seems excited. He's not like the pressures that he had from the Cup Series are off. Finally got that win that he always wanted. There's a lot of optimism coming into this year from the 25 team. What are we going to expect from Rackley Ward this year?
Yeah, definitely. I think they show that they have good enough stuff to win a race. They're a pretty new team, kind of coming from the ground up here. So I think they'll just continue to get better and better each year. Obviously, his win there came at Talladega, so we know he's a very good super speedway racer. But the emphasis for that team is just get better on the short track, get better on the mile and a half, get better on just some of those typical tracks. And I think that on a lot of road courses or super speedways that Matt's going to go out and get a good finish. So I think for them, the big focus just has to be going out there and getting better at a lot of those intermediates and short tracks. And then from that point on, they can be more competitive just in the grand scheme of the playoffs and the point standings. But I just expect them to get better and better every year.
Did I say one last team? I totally forgot. Thank you, buddy. KBM. Forgot to talk about them. Probably the biggest storyline in the truck series this year is KBM going to Chevrolet. Chase Purdy will be in the 4 truck, and then of course the 51 truck will be filled with a bunch of drivers. Jack Wood is also scheduled to run 10 races with that team, and then another team we haven't really kind of get into. We'll kind of mix them in here. Nick Sanchez, of course, will be running for Rev Racing, which will be affiliated with KBM. What are we going to expect from those 3 drivers?
Yeah, I think starting on the KBM side, certainly a couple of unknowns there. I think a couple of guys that, to put it pretty lightly, have really struggled in their time so far in the Truck Series. I think that we just need to see a lot of growth out of them this year. Jack Wood in particular really had a tough year this past year. Seemed to wreck a lot, crash a lot, have a lot of bad luck. He just needs to work on piecing races together, and then some of those results will come. And kind of the same boat here is Chase Purdy has had a couple of opportunities and has not been able to capitalize it. But now he's not really his third team in 3 years. But he has to go out and improve himself and show that that he's kind of got it, because neither of those guys really have so far in their career. So this is definitely huge years for them. And now kind of on the Rev side, Nick Sanchez, I mean, one of the top prospects right now in the sport. Had obviously comes off the ARCA championship, ran a bunch of Xfinity races last year with Big Machine Racing and really ran pretty well. Was really running top 10, top 15 most of those races. So I think you'll come out and be really, really good. I think when you compare Nick to somebody like Raja Karuth, both kind of in that Drive for Diversity program, kind of at that same phase right now, I think you could probably say Nick's a little bit ahead of Raja, but I think Nick will come out and be able to win a few races and be in the mix to make the championship for it, because you don't see a lot of guys just be able to flawlessly transition from ARCA to Xfinity like that quickly, unless you're like Ty Gibbs. So obviously didn't win a race, but was certainly up in the mix and running pretty well with that Big Machine Racing team. So I think Nick's gonna have a pretty good year with Rev.
Yeah. Also want to also shout out my friends at Young's. Spencer Boyd will be back full time with them, and there are more announcements to come with that team, and more announcements to come with the Truck Series overall. Let's talk about the schedule. There are a few changes of note to that schedule. Of course, no Sonoma. Of course, that was last year, but they will be they will be back at Mid Ohio, which I'm really excited about. They're also going to be at the Milwaukee Mile, which I know has garnered a lot of excitement. They'll also be at North Wilkesboro, along with the Cup Series, a points-paying race, first points-paying race there since 1996. So that's going to be fun and exciting. And only one dirt race, that of course is Bristol Dirt. Of course, Knoxville not on the schedule this year, and then most of the rest of the schedule looks the same. One day they will get Michigan back on the truck schedule. So let's talk about the schedule. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a pretty diverse schedule. I mean, you got one dirt race now instead of two. You got some road courses, big tracks, little tracks, super speedways, anything in between. I think, in terms of diversity of tracks that you visit, I think certainly the Truck Series is probably the most diverse in that category. So it should definitely be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the North Wilkesboro race. Look at some TV time there on Big Fox, so that should be fun. They've got a fun schedule for sure. I mean, they got a streak early in the season there. I think they're after Las Vegas, 5 weeks in a row the Truck Series. And you just kind of look there, just the diversity of everything. Atlanta Motor Speedway, essentially super speedway race. Coda, road course. Texas, intermediate. Bristol, dirt. And then Martinsville, a short track. So, 5 weeks, 5 completely different races. And with this new group of drivers, I think they'll put on a pretty good show this year, really, wherever they go.
Yeah. And of course, also only 2 road course races on the schedule. Coda and, of course, Mid-Ohio. I'll be at Mid-Ohio here. All right. Well, that's and finally, just your outlook for the series this year. What are we going to expect?
I think we're going to expect. Oh man, I think we're going to expect a good year, though. I mean, I think in 2021 that series was criticized a lot for a lack of respect. I think we saw that come back a little bit more here in 2022, and I think that will kind of transition into 2023. But I think with that mix between those veteran drivers and a lot of those young up and coming guys, and just in the staples of that series, I think it'll be a fun mix, and I think we'll see a really good on-track product and something that a lot of fans are really going to enjoy. So I'm looking forward to it. And I think they'll put on a good show this year.
For sure. I'm excited. All right. Before we let you go, what's coming up on the podium finish?
It's just some preseason stuff here soon. I mean, it's kind of we're only a couple weeks away from the Clash, which is pretty crazy, but just getting ready for the season. So nothing in particular yet, but we'll certainly have a lot of stuff coming up here soon.
All right. Sounds good. All right. That's going to do it. Thanks, Nathan, for coming on, and we'll stay tuned for more news coming up.